moment to talk about business. It is Business 101, and my name is Blyden Okem. In Business 101, we always look at the nitty-gritties of businesses, the most important part of it, the foundation, the best line of businesses, and try to find analytical views regarding it, the positives and the negatives. Today we'll be talking about Nigeria's oil production, the positives of it and the negatives, amid vandalism, amid subsidies, and how this has impacted the economy and what the future holds for Nigeria. Let's have a bit of a background regarding this. As the onslaught against oil theft continued in the Niger Delta region, Nigeria's crude oil output rose to 1.35 million barrels per day in September 2023, as the country pumped its highest volume of crude oil since this year. The figures obtained from the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission (NUPRC) on Wednesday showed that the country's output in September was about 14% higher than it pumped in August 2023. On a year-on-year analysis, the figure is 412,000 barrels per day higher than what was produced in August 2022. According to data from the Commission, it indicated that in September, Nigeria's crude oil production, excluding condensate, was precisely 1.346 barrels per day, which was a 165,429 barrels per day increase when compared to the 1.181 barrels per day produced in August this year. Further analyses of figures obtained from the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission indicated that in January, February, and March, the country's oil outputs were 1.266 million barrels per day, 1.292 million barrels per day, and 1.266 million barrels per day respectively. Also in April, May, June, and July, Nigeria produced 1.004 million barrels per day, 1.189 million barrels per day, 1.26 million barrels per day, as well as 1.089 million barrels respectively per day. Therefore, the above crude oil production figures showed that Nigeria's oil production in September was the highest output recorded in the country this year. Meanwhile, in September, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited said the country lost $700 million monthly to vandalism of crude oil facilities. And it's quite concerning from that direction. Today we'll be looking at the details of this. On one hand, the production quota is quite high, the highest in September, the highest in this year. On the other hand, the losses are massive. My guest will be standing by, will join the show soon, and we'll talk about the details of this. How, despite having a higher production outputs, vandalism is messing a mess and making a mess out of the country in terms of the production quota and in value of money. We'll look at the positives. We'll also look at our subsidy removal so far in Nigeria, what the impact has been. What are the ways to curb the menace of vandalism? And what could be Nigeria's trade output moving forward if this is controlled? We'll go on a quick break. When we return, my guest joins me and the conversation continues. Hello, good evening. It is another time and welcome back to talk about business outlook, and we're looking at a production quota of Nigeria's oil production And meet the positivity, we're also looking at the negativity in the oil sector. My guest gets to join the show now, Mr. Jeff. Mr. Japheth Jeff. Good evening, rather. Welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Blyden. Thank you very much, the listeners, our listeners. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Japheth Jeff is an economist, a chartered accountant, and a founder of Green Finance. But let's get to talk about the talking point now. And beginning from this, it would be what a draft is all about. There was a bit of good news in September when the outcome and outputs came out in terms of oil production in the country. The oil production level was quite high and the excitement were quite interesting from all quarters that finally Nigeria was able to produce oil at a higher level as the #1 producer of oil in the continent, Africa. But amid all this, there are many concerns in different directions, and one of those concerns is that vandalism has been a problem. But Mr. Japheth, before we talk about this, let's x-ray the very fine details regarding, because the last time we spoke about subsidy removal. Let's begin from there. How has it been so far for you when you look at the state of Nigeria amid the subsidy removal that has happened and the fall of the Naira? There are a bit of concerns on how it's impacting the country, and you said, let's give it time, and time we've given. What's the outlook for you now?
All right. Thank you very much for trying to revisit the removal of fuel subsidies. If I remember vividly, I did say on this show that Nigerians have to give it time, and my assertion was based on the fact that the drivers of the economy who are in the driving seat of the economy continues to do the right things. All right. That was the basis on which I based my assertions. So I am still restating that assertion that Nigerians are going to see a difference and things are going to stabilize, provided the drivers of the economy, those in the driving seat, the president, who is the minister of oil himself, and the NNPC, and the regulators, and also the CBN. The CBN policy directions are going to have impact on the oil and gas sector. So as long as these players, these economic managers are doing the right things, things will begin to take shape, and it will be better for Nigerians. All right. However, 3 months or so has passed, or 4 months have passed. That is short term. I did also say that you have short term in any policy direction. You have short term, and then you have long run. You have long term. So for the short term, you anticipate a period of 6 months, and then long run, you could anticipate a period of 2 years and above. That's what we call long run in policy making. All right. So so far so good. I have seen there are hitches. As any new policy could bring hitches and problems, there are problems. And I hope that the economic managers will continue to drive and show the economy to the right direction, especially the oil and gas sector. However, I'm still worried about the role of NNPC, the NNPC Limited. Yeah, NNPC Limited. I'm worried because sometimes they are talking like a private sector business, which they are supposed to be, and sometimes they are talking like a regulator. So there is confusion that has to be clarified.
All
All
right,
right.
we'll have to talk
So
about
that is
NMPC in the
another
course. We'll have to
lackey
talk about
in the whole
NMPC in.
system.
All
Yeah.
right, Missy Jefford, we'll have to talk about NMPC in the course of the show. But as many international institutions do, they make adjustment to their prediction. IMF recently made certain adjustment to their prediction in terms of a global economy and looking at different countries. You can also do the same when it has to do with predictions regarding the impact of subsidy removal in the country. Are you still firm and certain that it would, in the long run, benefit Nigeria? Because you have a chance to make a different call now. You can say, okay, there could be adjustment moving forward.
Absolutely. Adjustments are allowed, and adjustments are part of the what do you call economic policy predictions. When you make predictions based on certain economic variables or input factors. All right. So
Okay.
when there are changes to those input factors, it is allowed to as forecast. So the IMF has adjusted their forecast, which is ideal because there are emergent issues in the economy, in the global economy right now. There are emergent issues. The Israeli Palestinians war was not in the picture when we were making those predictions, but this has come. And you have so many other factors. We were also expecting that inflation we cool down, but inflation has not cooled down in many jurisdictions. So as long as inflation has not cooled down, the interest rate increase by the U.S. Fed, by the UK and central bank, that's the Bank of England, and the ECB, the European Central Bank. This interest rate hike is going to continue, and as long as the interest rate hike continues, you are going to expect to see that the growth prospect of many major global economies is going to be getting dimmer. So that informed the IMF adjustment in their predictions. Okay, so that's what I have to say about predictions. But hopefully, I also expect that such adjustment will affect Nigeria, which has also affected Nigeria as well. But it's not a Nigerian thing; it's a global thing. Even the economic growth prospect for the entire global economy has been adjusted, has been cut by IMF and the World Bank. By the US, from the US, that has also been cut by the IMF and the World Bank. So it is not common or a Nigerian thing. That's what I have to say. So we have to always put things in perspective and in the global, situate it properly in the global perspective so that we can understand where Nigeria is actually sitting.
Okay. All right, basically, while I talked about prediction, I wasn't really interested in the IMF predictions. It's a global analysis. Everyone have seen it. You decide to choose or not. I was actually interested in your own prediction. That's why I only use IMF as a reference point. They made predictions and they made adjustment. Last time out, you made your own predictions about subsidy removal and the positivity that could come with it. And I was hoping probably maybe you make a different predictions. But let's not stay on it. Let's talk about the positivity from a Nigerian point of view. One of it would be oil production quota in Nigeria. It came as a good news for the first time this year. Oil production in Nigeria hit 1.35 million barrels per day. In particular, it was in September. The biggest news everyone received since this administration removed subsidy and since we've been talking about production and vandalism. But how exciting was it for you, first of all? And secondly, how concerning is it? Because NNPC still, in the month of September, said the oil losses they had was up to $700 million monthly because of the concerns of vandalism, illegal refinery, and the other hand, interborder smuggling. Quite concerning for you. Look into these concepts and the concerns. One positive on one hand, on the other one a negative.
Negative. For me, even though it's a cheering news, it is not too exciting. I'm not too excited about it because I know Nigerians' production quota as given to them by OPEC is about 2 million barrels per day. So if you compare the actual production, daily production of 1.350, right? 1,350,000 barrels per day that has happened in the month.
Well, we lost him there. Hopefully he can join back and the conversation
Behind
continues.
reach the target. So there is really nothing exciting. It means that more work has to be done. It means the NNPC has to do more.
Well, you get
Oh,
to at least praise the situation. There have been improvement, and NNPC had talked about measures they are putting in place to curb vandalism. And one of those things were the automated system they had put in place. And we've seen the benefits so far. But on the other hand, NNPC have also spoken about the expenditure that they've spent in the last 18 months, and it amounts to about 34 billion naira. quite concerning, humongous amount of money. Because at this point where we're talking about expenditure, many would say if this amount of money is taken into other areas of the economy at a time that the federal government have dropped subsidy, it would make a lot of sense from that angle. But it's concerning this expenditure is running and keep running. And it's very difficult. One of those outlooks we've talked about, because it's an old story in Nigeria, would be this. How do we get to manage this and curb it? Because if you look at the trade deficit and rather the trade surplus in Nigeria, Nigeria's exports in the second quarter of this year was up to about 7 billion naira. And you look at the importation, it's about 5 billion naira. And difficult. How do we handle this? Because it gets to affect everything. I'm talking about vandalism now. You seem to miss it. I'm talking about the state of vandalism, as we're saying it's concerning. After the country had made the highest production this year, 1.35 million barrels per day it was, and such an improvement, many would say, the highest output this year. On the other hand, the losses from NMPC has been $700 million per month in terms of losses through vandalism, in terms of losses through local refineries, illegal refineries, you might say, and the next one would be cross-border, how do they call it now? Cross-border crossing of these goods illegally, and it's quite concerning from that angle. How do we get to manage this in the country?
Okay, I think I would like to comment on the fact is making effort to cut vandalism in the oil and gas sector. All right, they are spending up to a ton. They have spent out to a ton of 34 billion. To cut vandalism, and I also want to believe that it's because such investment is yielding positive result. That is the reason why we have seen improvement in their daily production output. All right. So I think that is quite commendable. Now, in any investment, you have to do a cost benefit analysis. So if you do a cost benefit analysis and you discover that the savings that you are going to achieve in terms of reduction in vandalism and oil theft by investing that ton of 34 billion naira in combat vandalism, if the reduction cases of vandalism is going down and production output, daily production output is actually going up, then it is a viable investment. And I don't see anything wrong in continuing to invest to combat the cancer or the most terrible setback that has been pushing Nigeria into deficit, especially the revenue that comes from oil and gas sector. All right. So spending 34 billion naira to be able to raise capacity to up to 1.35 million in a daily production, I think it's commendable. It's not a bad investment at all, right? But as I say, they can do better, they can do more. They have to focus on fixing the problem because Nigeria is at economic crossroads right now. And the only immediate resource that Nigeria have to be able to chart the course or the way forward is the petroleum resources. So we must make sure that petroleum resources properly managed and properly utilized, at least in the short term, to fix the economy. Because you can't start diversifying right now. If you want to start diversifying right now, you will not get revenue from such diversification endeavors or effort. Maybe it will be in the next 5 years before or 4 years before you could start getting benefit from such diversification. Get me right. I'm not saying Nigerians should not diversify, But I am saying that we should manage petroleum resources very well, which is a bird in hand. All right, a bird in hand is worth more than a thousand in a bush. A bird in hand for Nigeria economy is the petroleum resources we have got. Therefore, we must manage these petroleum resources better. We must go all out and crush vandalism, crush vandals, and make sure that NNPC is doing the right thing. All the regulators that have been created to regulate the sector, they have to rise to the occasion and do the right thing, as Nigeria is going to go broke. All right. These are the Nigerians that have right now to prevent bankruptcy, to prevent government shutdown, to raise revenue, to be able to generate additional dollars and be able to even support the naira. Okay,
All right.
so
Now that you've
that's just my
mentioned the
take on
naira,
that.
Now that you've mentioned the naira, let's talk about it. One recent concern from NMPC and marketers, it's been a back and forth, has been that marketers came out to say that NMPCL and the government of Nigeria were still putting subsidy in place. And the marketers' argument has been this, that when you look at subsidy, when subsidy was removed, um, uh, one of those concern was this, that the price of naira against the dollar was 750 naira per dollar. And now, since the exchange rate had increased to about 1,000 naira per dollar, that it therefore implies that government are still subsidizing oil. But on the other hand, the NMPC came out, Amala Kiari, the group managing director of NMPCL, came out to deny that. And he's saying the reason we're having some shrouded uh, population of motorists at filling stations battling to get fuel in across the country was basically about distribution processes from the south and the north. And there is nothing like subsidy. But it beats many people's imagination because this conversation tilts towards the microeconomy. We've really spoken about the macro outlook of it. We'll look at the microeconomic aspect of it, how it affects the common man. So, from your standpoint, back and forth from different quarters, the marketers, and then on the other hand, NMPC. Would you imagine or perceive that they are correct in this regard, that there are possibilities that the government is still adding subsidy to importation of petrol? Because the valid argument is this. If when you remove subsidy, the price was 750 naira per a dollar in exchange rate, and you're using the dollar, exchanging it for naira to get this petrol, PMS in particular, imported. And now the exchange rate is about 1,040 to the naira. And quite concerning from that angle, there should be a difference in price also, that now the price is within the price of PMS per liter is within about 600 plus per liter in the country, that it should get to 800 based on this analysis. Mr. Jeff, you didn't
All
get
right,
that.
Blyden. Yeah. All right. I actually read the called the press release by the secretary of it, and I think he's making some sense. Um, However, I have a feeler. I got some feelers that he was actually speaking like somebody who has been frustrated with the system and with the manner in which NNPC is managing the whole situation. All right. And I quite understood because we have all got situations where we are frustrated with certain stakeholders that we need to work with. They actually have to work with NNPC, and it seems there is no synergy right now. It seems they are both working at cross purposes. NNPC probably is working northward, and they are maybe working southward. So there is a kind of a tone of frustration. Based on these, I cannot say that they are true. I cannot say that subsidies have been reintroduced. And my own reasoning or objective assessment is that I know in inventory management, we have what is called buffer stock. All right. So buffer stock means that you would have imported a particular billions of liters of petroleum products and stock them in your inventories at a cheaper price, right? So even though the market price has increased, you are still drawing from your buffer stock, which you have had billions of liters you have imported at a cheaper cost and you are still holding. And that's what you are currently selling to customers. So on that ground, you still be able to continue to sell at a cheaper price, yet you will be making a gain. So we cannot describe that situation as an reintroduction of fuel subsidies. All right. So on that ground, the IPMA and leaders could be wrong.
Okay, based on what
If
you said,
you are
Mr.
current
Jaffet.
market situation, they might be right if this is not what is the situation in NNPC right now. So I don't know,
Okay,
but we have to really verify
well,
and see what is happening in NNPC
a
before
good
we
place
can
to
take a
keep it is when
position.
you say you don't know. But one projection is, according to the marketers, that all of us can agree with, it's a pointer that there's a need for a price change in the nearest future if Naira keeps weakening against the dollar. Isn't that true? Because
Definitely.
as long as the naira keeps weakening and you're still importing this commodity, oil, PMS in particular, what it therefore means is at the exchange rate, we're going to have a lesser forex scarcity. There will be a depletion of our forex reserve in the long run. And it also gets to affect the quality and quantity of commodities we bring into the country. And the NMPC also said in recent times that the demand of these commodity PMS had dropped per day in the country. And that basically many people might assume it could be because of the economic state of the people. But let's look at a picture of the Naira and talk about the future regarding oil, PMS in particular, not generally oil. The Naira is weakening by the day. And Nigeria is still importing this PMS, petrol, into the country. How scary is it for you?
I think, hello, Blyden.
Go ahead, I can hear you. I said Nigeria, the Naira is weakening by the day. This year in particular, the Naira has dropped in value by about 40%. And that's concerning, one of the weakest in Africa. And while Nigeria is still the highest producer of crude oil in Africa, on the other hand, Nigeria is importing lots of crude oil. When you look at our trade, our import into the country, Nigeria's highest export is crude oil. And no wonder we had an export level of 7 billion naira in the second quarter. But you look at our imports, Nigeria's highest importation is UPMS, crude oil derivative. And it's quite concerning from that angle. And now the naira is weaker and weaker and weaker by the day. It's scary for many people. It's scary for me. I don't know if it is for you.
All right. For me, it's not scary. It's not scary because I have seen all of these things. So when you have seen problems coming, you anticipated problems, and you even predicted problems. When they come, you don't get scared. All right. So that is the position that I am in right now. Since Buhari's regime, um, then in 2019, 2020, I was still in Nigeria, and I kept on writing several economic and macroeconomic articles, releasing and sharing with some communities. And they will remember vividly. At a point, I even wrote an open letter to the President Buhari, providing my patriotic view on how I felt they should manage Naira. Okay. All of these, they never took anything into account, and they kept on managing naira as if the naira or as if Nigeria owns the world. For goodness sake, Nigeria does not own the world, and the world owns Nigeria nothing. All right. So Nigeria have got to manage and stand up and manage their own economy very well and effectively and defend their interests. Where they fail to do so, there are going to be consequences. This is one of the consequences. All right. This is just one of the consequences. Now, be it as it is, this is the time for strong people who are courageous and brave enough and who have the technical competence to stand up and do what they need to do. The central bank governor has been appointed, and I strongly believe that he's a man of technical competence economically. So he has to stand in the gap and do the tough job. It's a very tough job, it's a dirty job, but they have got to roll the sleeves and do the dirty job. That is the job at hand right now. All right. So there is no need for panicking. I want to call on Nigerians not to panic. I just want to encourage them to be brave as they have always been brave. And I also want to encourage them to continue to push the leadership, keep their eyes on the leadership, the president, the CBN, the Minister of Finance. These are a bit more technical people than the previous regime Buhari paraded. I think I stand to be corrected. The Buhari paraded the worst set of economic team in the history of Nigeria since I was growing up, and I've started studying economics. Went to university, studied economics, an economist, chartered accountant. I've never seen the worst economic things in the history of my bet in Nigeria like Buhari paraded. So that is what have led Nigeria into this. But
All
the
right.
set of people I am seeing right now in that space on the driving seat, I think I have more confidence in them than the confidence I had in the Buhari team. So Nigerians should not panic. Let's work together. Let's rally around them. I know it's going to be painful. I know it's a painful experience, but we cannot be crying and forget to make effort or surrender. We don't need to surrender. We don't need to succumb. We need to stand firm. We need to hold them to account and support them. And we also need to be quick to point to them when they are going wrong. Okay.
All
I'm
right.
so excited about the policy direction that the CBN announced yesterday, the abolishment, the removal of restriction on ban items, about 43 ban items.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, that has been deleted, that has been removed. So that is a very commendable policy direction. I have written severally and advocated for that. That if you are going into a flexible exchange rate, then there should be a level playing field for all importers. Don't create a situation where you sideline other importers. If you're sidelining other importers, you are providing demand on the parallel market. And if you provide the demand for the parallel market will continue to blossom. And the exchange rate difference between the I and E window, the import and export market, there's no official market again. Just call it import and export market, and the parallel market will continue to be widening. Okay? But when you abolish that list, the guys that are sourcing for foreign and creating demand in the parallel market will all come to the real market, the IE window, the competitive market, played according to the rules. Bid for currencies and get currencies. They bid for currencies and get currencies at maybe 1,000 plus, so be it. But at least that offers us hope that the black market will begin to die because there will be no more demand, especially massive demand that moves and swing the exchange rate. All right,
All right,
with
Mr.
this
Jeff.
there as the black market.
All right,
So
Mr.
there
Jeff.
is hope. Honestly, objectively, there is hope. That's what I have to say.
Okay. Okay. All right, we'll get to talk about the positivity that could come in the long run, or probably the solutions regarding all these problems we've talked about. But we have to go on a quick break, and afterwards, the conversation continues, and Business 360, Business 101 rather, continues, where we get into the details of the solutions, and one of it would be Dangote Refinery. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It is Business 101, and my name is Blyden Ukem. And Mr. Jeff has been my company in this particular analysis regarding the oil production in the country Nigeria. The output increased to a highest level of 1.35 millions barrels per day in September, the highest this year. While on the other hand, the NNPC had said that in September, they lost a whopping sum of $700 million per month because of the losses due to vandalism, or losses due to illegal refinery, and losses due to illegal smuggling of crude commodities or crude derivative, if you want to say, the likes of petrol, PMS, diesel, and the rest. But we've looked at all the analyses and all the problems in this one. And many people begin to ask, what are the solutions moving forward? Solutions for vandalism, solutions for the weakness of the Naira and how it applies. But one conversation I want us to look at, Mr. Jeff, would be this Dangote refinery. When Dangote refinery came on board, everyone was excited. The government spoke tough. And they said it would change the narrative about PMS in the country. And many marketers assumed or presumed or stated that the price of PMS would be down. And that is what every Nigerian is looking forward to. The price of PMS to be down, because when this price gets down, inflation most likely get down, the cost of commodities would be down, and probably the value of Naira and Forex reserve gets to be stronger. Let's look at a conversation. Dangote refinery, rather, at the point of inauguration of that refinery, it said production would begin by July, August. We came to July, August, it never happened. And now the next projection is that it would be by October, and it's going to be a 370,000 barrels per day capacity, and predominantly would begin with diesel and other commodities and not necessarily PMS. But let's talk about the importance of this. It could be one solution moving forward.
All right. I want to salute Dangote and commend him for his bravery and courage to take risk and invest in Nigeria and in Africa. All right. That's not a mere feat, that's a great feat. So I love hard for him. However, there have been issues with Dangote refinery right from the start. And those issues ranged from planning, project methodology, and then project execution. The planning was a bit faulty, not properly done. The planning was not done in line with modern project management methodologies. One of the modern project management methodologies that we use is and in agile project management, you don't build a refinery, you don't stand and begin to build refinery from A to Z. And what you do is that you look at the refinery construction as an activity, and then you break this activity into smaller milestone activities called milestones. And then you take each chunk of the activities and execute. So you don't necessarily execute entire chunks of activities. You execute in pieces. For example, Dangote was set out to execute a project that would deliver 670,000 and processing and barrels a day capacity,
That's
right? Was it
650,000 capacity.
650,000, 670,000?
It's 650,000 capacity.
Dangote could have divided these based on the best practice methodology.
Well, amid these concerns, many outlook and many Nigerians and even Africans are quite excited about the Dangote refinery, and many are hopeful that it gets to happen soon. Production commences soon. And many people are hoping that there won't be further postponement regarding the commencement of production in the refinery. One question we'll like to ask would be how important this refinery is.
Like that. So we wouldn't have been here talking all of this refining capacity in Nigeria, and that refinery could have started operations since 2022, yeah, or 2021, which is the original project timeline. But that was not done. Probably he brought in some people from Asia. I'm not underestimating the ability of Asians to execute project. But hey, this is lessons learned in project management. We learn lessons. So we have learned our lessons, and I want to believe Dangote, as an entrepreneur, have also learned his lessons. All
Okay.
right. So he has documented the lessons. Maybe in his future investment, he will do better. All
All
right.
right,
Now,
Mr.
having
Jeff.
said that, let me straight to your question,
Hmm.
which is whether this is going to provide some respite to
Yes.
the
Is it the
situation
game
in
changer?
Nigeria. Yes, it is going to provide some respite, especially in the area of forex liquidity. All right, because he is going to be exporting refined products, and the proceeds or the revenues are going to be received in dollars. All right, so the inflow of dollars into Nigeria arising from the sale of the first batch, the first barrels, refining barrels of 370,000, we help to support the naira. So I think that is the only positive I have seen. But if you ask me whether that is going to help and reduce the price of petroleum products,
That is what
I think I
Nigerians
want
are
to say
interested in.
no. It's not going to reduce the price,
Why is it so?
but it will ease the forest capacity in Nigeria.
How come you say, Mr. Jeff, how come you say that it will not reduce the price of PMS in the country? Because many people say the reason the price is high is because the bulk of the PMS, Nigeria is importing it. So if we're now producing it at home, and it could circulate within the country, and probably Nigeria gets to export some of it. And by the way, the Nigerian government has 20% stake in the Dangote refinery. And it could be that point. Nigerians are looking forward to be hopeful. You said we have to be hopeful, so you have to analyze to me why the price wouldn't go down. Mr. Jeff, are you with us?
All right, Blyden,
Yes.
I think I am Nigerians the truth. I am not on this show to sugarcoat words or to provide fake hope. I am on this show to tell Nigerians the truth
Absolutely.
and
We're
tell
looking
them
for the
things
reasons.
objectively. All right. So, from objective perspective, may I ask this rhetorical question?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Has Nigeria been going up recently, or it has been going down? Going down.
Okay.
The price of cement has actually been going up.
Oh,
The price of cement in 2021 was 2,500 per bag. The bag of cement today is about 5,500. This cement is produced by Dangote, right? Domestically. Cement is not imported, yet the price has spiked by
many
100%.
also think that the
So,
reason
and
for that,
again, this
Mr.
takes
Jeff, Mr. Jeff, let me interrupt you there. Many also
all
think
right.
that the reason for that would have a lot to do with the cost of diesel and the cost of PMS, which controls food prices, controls the bulk of material prices in the economy, and leads to inflation, high prices of things. And many think it could be a game changer for
All
Nigeria
right.
if the value of the price of PMS is down. It gets to a ripple effect on everything.
Okay. I think if Nigeria government want the cost Dangote refinery to lead to a reduction in the price of PMS in Nigeria, then they have to do something extraordinary. They have to go further beyond owning 20% in the refinery by either selling crude, crude, which is a major input into production of a refinery. Nigeria should sell crude to Dangote in naira as well. That's the only thing that
Okay.
could keep the price of PMS from going up. If they don't sell the crude to Dangote in naira, cash naira, collect naira from Dangote, when Dangote is buying those input, which is the crude produced by NNPC and other major oil and gas companies, multinational oil companies, right? International oil companies, we should not expect the commencement of production by Dangote to bring down the pump price of fuel in Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff. Thank you, Mr. Jeff. Time is not a friend. I would love to probe even further on that analysis, but it's been a swell time talking about production quotas in the country, the increase and the fall and the positivity and the lack. Subsidy we've looked at, and we've looked at Naira's perspective in this and to capital with Dangote Refinery. Thank you for being a part of the show. We hope to have you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, the listener. Thank you very much. Thanks for having
Always
me,
a pleasure.
Thank you.
And here we draw the curtain on today's edition of Business 101. My name is Blyden Ukem, and the conversation is an unfolding conversation. It continues even further. Thank you for being a part of it.